So could you please speak once so that I'll just check on the sound?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me? Mr. Manivan, can you hear me?
Mr. Shenoy, are you there?
Yes, and good evening. Yes, Dr. Banerjee, I can hear it loud and clear.
Oh, good evening. Good evening. Nice hearing you also.
Yeah, that's right.
It seems I'm not audible. Am I audible, Mr. Shenoy?
Yeah, we can hear you, Anirban. You're very loud and clear. We can hear you.
Just a minute, sir. Sir, could you please, it seems I'm not audible. Am I audible, sir?
We can hear you.
Mr. Manivan, I can also hear you so well.
Just check on your mic system where you're connected. Maybe you're not on the speaker.
Okay. Mr. Shenoy, could you just show me a thumb if I'm audible? I'm audible. You are not audible. Mr. Jayanta Shah, I have made you a co-host. Could you please unmute yourself and say if Mr. Shenoy and Dr. Banerjee are audible?
Yes, they are both audible to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just a few minutes more. Sorry, it seems I'm facing a small technical glitch. Just a few minutes, sir, please. I understand that all of you can hear me. I cannot really hear you, but yeah, that is so it shows that I cannot hear you. Just a minute, I'll just check. Hello. Okay, I'll just start off the meeting. It seems I'll just check up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you all to today's CMA EIILM Kolkata webinar on self-management. Before we start off, and I request Mr. TVS Shenoy, the Vice President of Calcutta Management Association, to kindly welcome the gathering. And also I hand over to Dr. R.P. Banerjee to take the proceedings and take up the first session. I should thank Dr. Banerjee and EIILM Kolkata for giving us this opportunity and being with us in organizing this event. Before we start up, let me just give you a few instructions. Uh, Kindly keep eyes on the chat box. At the end of the event, I'll be giving on the chat box the e-certificate link, wherein you can go and get your certificates collected. It will come to your email ID directly. So that is the biggest information that I wanted to give. And in case you go out of the event and we are expecting a rush to this event for more than 500 people attending this event, in case that happens, we have our own channel of Calcutta Management Association. Kindly do go to the channel of Calcutta Management Association and you can watch it from there, or the Facebook page of CMA. So with that, we welcome you once again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very sorry for the technical glitch that I am facing here. But before I request Dr. Banerjee to kindly take up the first session on self-management, the driver for corporate excellence, I'll be introducing him briefly. But before that, may I request the Vice President of Calcutta Management Association, Mr. TVS Shenoy, to kindly say a few words and welcome the gathering. Mr. Shenoy, sir.
Thank you, Anirban, and good evening, everyone. Just a quick check if I'm audible. Dr.
Yes, sir.
Banerjee?
Now you are audible, Vince. Thank you.
I think you needed a little nice warm-up connection, Anirban, and
Yes, sir.
Dr. Banerjee from EIILM, thank you very much for organizing this session. I'm TVS Shenoy, the Vice President of the Calcutta Management Association, and I'm also with Tata Steel for the past 28 years. And this continues to be my first job, which I joined from the campus. And when I heard the topic Anirban was saying, and he mentioned two elements to it. One was self-management and the driver for corporate excellence. And second one, which is even more closer to my heart, the role of values, ethics, and spirituality in management. And when you look back at the last 1 year and look at the pandemic, when it started off and where we ended, none of us could have ever imagined our lives would have been touched so much and so vastly differently from what we started off March of 2019, 2020. And here, especially when I'm seeing such a huge number of students also connected, and all of them will be joining the corporate world, I thought, what better than this time for preparing oneself and hearing the luminaries speak when one gets into the world of corporate excellence. Incidentally, we had last evening the annual awards function of the Calcutta Management Association of Excellence, and there are plenty of stories there, which I would urge all of you to have a look at the recordings on YouTube of the awards event. Wonderful stories of leadership, wonderful stories of excellence. I'm reminded of our founder, Jamshedji Tata. And when you talk of values and ethics, there's no better than the Tatas to be a beacon. And he said maybe a century ago, in a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder, but in fact, the very purpose of its existence. When you have something like this as a North Star or a values, it percolates down to each of the employees and perhaps to each of the stakeholders as well. But what does it mean for us? What does it mean for us as individuals who are perhaps in the college and undergrad students and now stepping into the corporate world? I would say there are two key things. Values and ethics don't erode with time. They're your North Star, and they'll continue to be a North Star till you go to your grave. And it is what that you have with you as a values will carry you through in a corporate world. And let me tell you a beautiful story of a young officer who had joined me and my team maybe around 10 years ago. And what is the kind of value she stood for. And all of you who are going to join the corporate world, it's not something rocket science, but small little anecdotes like this, which will help you to grow in the corporate, in your career ahead. It's like this. When Aditi she's a young 23-year-old officer from the campus from one of the MBA colleges, and she had been assigned a sales task. She had been told, okay, I need this sales report by the end of tomorrow at 8 p.m. And believe me, Aditi would have ensured she would have sent the report to me at 7:30 p.m. you're adding a little of credit balance in Aditi's bank balance. After a few days, you ask Aditi, well, I need this report as well as the sales target plan for the month, and I need it by day after tomorrow. Aditi does it by tomorrow, and she also ensures the sales target are met by day after tomorrow. You add a little more of bank balance, the credit bank balance in Aditi's bank account. Small incidences, small commitments to promises will only enhance one's values. So are you the Aditi in your heart or when you step into the corporate world? Small promises and small steps make up to a big castle, and they say you can build castles in the air, but always build foundations under them. So what is it relevant in today's world? When we step into the corporate world, and when you look at various people and the various challenges one faces with colleagues, with bosses, with customers, are you clear what you stand out for? Are you clear what your North Star is? And hence my suggestion to each one of you, what is the value that you stand for? If you're able to get your North Star right at the beginning of the career, have some great counsel, I think it'll be a wonderful step for you in the corporate world. Hence, very clearly, the role of values is something which is fundamental to growing successfully in the corporate world. And I've seen it time and time again, brilliant youngsters who can go by the wayside, brilliant youngsters who go to the top because they stand for a certain value and live by it. Well, when you're doing such a world, when you're all stepping into such a world, there are three things which I would suggest you all need to look out for. First, find a mentor at work. And as you see today, you have Mr. Rao from L&T, you have Mr. Judhajit from ICICI Pro Life, you have Pallavi from HRBP. Of course, you've got Mr. Banerjee from EIILM, and I think is a great institute for us for all learnings. And of course, Mr. Dutt from UN. So what does it mean for all of us? From each one of the mentors whom you're going to listen, and in a corporate world or in a student world, find a mentor who can help you take shortcuts. Believe me, a mentor has seen it and has seen it all. You can bounce off your values, your ethical dilemmas, your value dilemmas with each of them. Find it to somebody whom you can do it. Believe me, it is significant, important advice which will help you tremendously in your life in terms of having shortcuts to success. Find a mentor and go to him unashamedly for your problem. That's one. Second is chase a passion beyond work. Each of us are bogged down in our work so much that we miss the good things in life. It's great to be hardworking, but even greater to have a passion beyond work. Corporate life or entrepreneur life is ruthless, is not going to be forgiving. And you need pressure walls and to let go your release. And you have a great kind of passion beyond work, I think will get you there. And what does it connect to the session today? Spirituality. I think it is one of the most fabulous topics which I sense could be one of the pressure busters in terms of your corporate world. So we have seen values, how it's important. We have seen ethics, it's your North Star. We have seen spirituality, it could be one of your passions beyond work. And all of this mixed together, when done well, can have a great corporate life. And before I conclude my thought, I just leave with one thought with all of you, that it's always great to dream. Always be clear of what your North Star is. Always stand by your values. Don't cow down by your bosses. Unless you have a clear vision and what you stand for, you'll never be able to sit on the fence. And I don't want you all to sit on the fence. You should have an opinion and you should have a value as you get ahead in corporate world. Thank you very much from CMA. Thank you, EIILM, Banerjee. I think it is wonderful partnering with you. And for all the people who have joined in here, I hope you're going to have a great 2 hours, which will help you to shape your careers and profit the mind. Thank you, and over to you, Dr. Banerjee, for the next session.
Uh, Before I request Dr. Banerjee to take over, I'll just take this opportunity of introducing Dr. Banerjee to all of you. Though he needs no introduction, I'll be just taking a few words to introduce him. Professor Dr. R.P. Banerjee, with a rich experience of over 3.5 decades, Professor Ramaprasad Banerjee perfectly harmonizes academic brilliance with industry expertise. Basically, a professor of finance and ethics, he has taught almost all areas of management, both in context of transnational corporations and domestic organizations. As an international educationalist, Professor R.P. Banerjee has been focusing on the Indian spiritual values and spreading the fundamental message of Vedic civilization. He has focused on certain noble values like integrity, serenity, honesty, truthfulness, cooperation, sacrifice, etc., for manpower management and managing enterprises in the business, social, and global context. He has delivered lectures on invitations at numerous universities abroad, including Pennsylvania State University, Texas University, Austin, Texas Women's University, Texas University Dallas, Tarleton State University, University of Tennessee, University of Kansas, Arlington State University, University of Hamburg, Stockholm University, Northwestern University, Mingdao University of Taiwan, and Pathum, Pathumthani University of Thailand, amongst others. He has worked as senior executive for over a decade in the industry and taught various areas in management in leading Indian and international organizations, including Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. He was a member of the Committee of Induction Program, Ministry of HRD, Government of India. He was also the Vice President at Large International Association of Accounting, Education and Research, USA. He holds a PhD in management from Calcutta University and has done his postdoctoral research at Stockholm University. His publications include more than 200 articles in prestigious national and international journals. He has authored 9 books and co-authored close to a dozen books, the latest of them being a sage publication entitled Art and Science of Management in the Digital Era. Few of his the acclaimed awards of Professor Banerjee are as follows: Education Leadership from BBC World News, February 2017; CSR Excellent Chairman of Leading Institute of India, conferred by the Competition Success Review in May 2020; National Education Awards 2018 by ABP News in July; Thought Leader Award presented by CIMA in July 2015; Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishna Award in 2012. These are only a few of the awards that he has received. So we would not take any much more time of yours, and I would request Dr. R.P. Banerjee to kindly take over and take us through the first session on self-management, the driver for corporate excellence. Sir, it's up to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Honorable, and thank you, Mr. Sinai. Good evening to everybody. And at the outset, I would like to profusely thank Calcutta Management Association to have agreed to this, point of having a session on the self-management, concept of self-management and spirituality at workplace. And thanks to the entire board of Calcutta Management Association and Mr. Chennai in particular. Today, I'm going to talk, I believe, mine is until 6:30. So I have 45 minutes time. Of course, if I get permission from the audience and from you all, then I can take another 5 to 10 minutes if you permit. And I'll try to complete within this time frame. So self-management is something which we have been talking, and there are a lot of people in the world, I believe in the various places, people have been talking about. It's a traditional concept, and it's got somehow connected with the concept of values and ethics. I just begin with the concept of ethics in the modern era. How are we, connected to the principles and practices of ethics? I'm just going to mention in a nutshell, is correct when Mr. Chennai had mentioned about, the founder of Tata's. I have a great respect for him. And he's a person who has imbibed certain kinds of values in the corporate, which has got two aspects. One is, in the corporate functioning, and the other one is connected with the people working in the organization. However, there was a formal, announcement of, structuring a department of ethics. First of all, Texas Instrument, I'll talk about. In the early 70s and mid 70s, they had a separate department called Department of Ethics. And probably that was the first in its kind. And, for the Department of Ethics with Carl Skuzland as the director of that, it had functioned so well that, it had functioned as an independent department. And that was a, very important point. But then ethics as a policy, ethics as a principle and practice for the corporates, is now spread so much that it's very difficult to find out listed company in the stock markets having, without having this ethics policy or ethics practice. When they come up with this, corporate policies, policy statements, then obviously ethics and values plays an important role in that. I want to talk about this as a point of, beginning, like ethics has been drawn from a word called ethikos, ethikos. Ethikos has got a meaning. It's a Greek word, Greek, root of the word of ethics. It's got a meaning called character. Now, what do we understand about character? What is the character? What does it stand for? Character definitely pertains to an individual, character of an individual. However, we can identify the organizational character also. I wrote a paper long back, almost 30 years ago, that is organizational character as a challenge to organizational behavior. Now we do talk about organizational behavior, but organizational character is more fundamental to organizational behavior. I'm not getting into that topic, but as an individual, when it comes to behavior, comparing between behavior and character, proves to be more fundamental than behavior in an individual context, and that can be drawn to a collective context as well. So when we talk about the character of an individual, what are the things? The moment we talk about character, we do mean willy-nilly that it's a good character. Now that was, character is getting qualified by a term called goodness. Now, what is this goodness of a character? So Anivan has mentioned about, certain points, which I believe these are the fundamental things for an individual. Integrity, for example. Integrity, how do we take integrity in a corporate context? If I give a word, if I make make an announcement, or if I make a promise in the context of a company, then how do I justify that? Do I have to go beyond the boundaries of my personal? Sorry, it got muted. That's why I have made it unmute again. Yeah, when I'm at the boundary of my personal limits, then probably I have to find out what are the things where I am actually stuck up with. The promise that I make to the world and the promise that I make to myself, whether these two are different or not. I'm at a point that what the mind says, the mouth should speak the same thing. The words that you utter and the things that you think about, there should be a concurrence between. If there is a gap between, then the person becomes a hypocrite. There shouldn't be any gap between the mind and mouth, meaning the synchronization between the mind and mouth. So, how does it come? It's the fundamental of a person. It comes from within. It comes from your inner understanding of the inner world. So, there is something, let us assume that there is something called inner world. And of course, we have an external world. If I am interiorized, meaning if I am oriented to the inner world, then I find out, the realities therein. On the other hand, when I am oriented to the external world, I get the things through my sense organs and multiplied formations of the sense organs, which the technology and other instruments, gadgets can help me for. So I can see the world and the world can see me. If I can assume, as Immanuel Kant wanted to assume, and he made an assumption that there are two types of, elemental existence in a personality. One is your empirical existence. The other one is your, eternal existence. If I may call, and he had branded the empirical existence as a phenomenon, and there's an eternal component of it, which is a noumenon. Actually, the Immanuel Kant had drawn this from, one of our bases in the Rig Vedas, and later on, that was again transcribed by Lord Krishna and was told to Arjuna also. It is actually the inner world and the outer world, the intrinsics and the extrinsics. Intrinsics is the Akshar Purush, and the extrinsics is the Kara Purush. Akshar is the eternal, and Kara is a, empirical. Empirical, when we interact with the world, when we are one with the world, we take part in the activities of the world. I'm a worker, I'm a manager, I'm a leader, I'm a, beggar, I'm a king, whatever be my identity, then, that is the external identity of mine. And that's how the people that look at me, and that's how the people always look at you, and this is how you were known to the world. But there is another dimension, which is noumenon, the intrinsic personality of the individual. And at the intrinsic personality, what is your identity? Who can tell that? And how do we reveal that? Now it's said, psychologists or applied psychologists more particularly would tell that, oh yes, your behavior comes out with that, and your behavior would tell that. Yes, of course, that's true. Behavior would come out with that, but then behavior doesn't reveal everything. I can make a behavior which is not, connected with my intrinsic character. Now, characters create a difference. Characters are the, differentiating factors of individual. The behaviors are not the differentiating factors. Characters are the differentiating factors. I'm, arguing this, and I have a difference of opinion with the OB group and, the behavioral school, wherein they say that the behavior is the differentiating factor. Behavior is not, the character is the differentiating factor, and behavior is a, subordinate to the character. I'll explain, like, for example, if you take a piece of iron, it's got a properties. It can melt at a particular temperature. It can provide you the strength of, strength, resilience, it can provide you that, we understand what is a piece of metal called iron. We understand through the attributes of iron. Similarly, we understand the attributes of gold, silver, platinum, copper. We understand. How do we understand? Through the attributes. And the attributes are fundamental to those metals. I'm talking about the attributes of individuals. And attributes make a difference. Attributes are the differentiating factor, and how does it contribute to the corporate world? I'll tell you. Like, let me take an, example of two persons, person A and person B. And person A and person B, I'm assuming they both have the same kind of skill set, competence, and, capabilities, and, the desired qualification or whatever you are, your prescriptions, both of them fit in properly. And, but then let's come to the inner world of the two persons, if I may calculate that in quantitative terms or in a subjective way. So let's assume that, the person A is very aggressive, rugged, and the person A thinks that, oh yes, I'll win the thing, I'll win the game anyhow, and I'll reach to the, target by through winning the game. And my objective is to win the target. I want to achieve the target. Why? Because, when I'm in a corporate, I have to achieve the target. Target achievement is one of the fundamental things for a corporate organization, and an individual and an executive has to conform to that. So the target is there, and person A thinks that, yes, I have to achieve the target. And how do I achieve, the target? That's none of your business. You're my boss. I achieve the target with the legal boundaries of yourself. I conform to the legality, and I'm there to achieve the target, and I'm surely I'm going to achieve the target. So I'm target oriented. I know how to reach the ends. I'm very much careful about my ends, always in mind, and I can develop my strategies, redefine my strategies. I can redesign my strategies, and I know how to reach out, and I shall reach out, and maybe that I have reached out at a certain point of time. There is another person B, with the same level of competence and, for this all the skill sets present in person B are docile, for a person who is submissive, but then person knows that, this is my target, but person thinks, yes, this is a straight way to reach the target, which is easier for me to, reach the target by, and in the process, if I tell some lies, if I give some wrong inputs to some other people and then reach my target, I can do that. But you see, I am a person with so much of, inheritance. My father was that, my grandfather was that. So I have something which I need to prove myself to be in line with. So therefore, I cannot pollute my lineage. I cannot pollute my, the cultural heritage of my family, my society, my nation. Therefore, I just follow a different path. That's hazardous. That's a path which is carved out, which is skewed, maybe difficult to reach. I have to spend a lot of things. I have to burn a lot of oils, and then I can reach. But I have got the determination to reach. So B is taking a tougher way, tougher path. And why B is not conforming to the shortcut, is not taking a shortcut. B is thinking that, oh yes, I have to reach the ends, but at the same time, I have to maintain the sanctity, the fairness of the means. Now, here is the point. A person between A and B, all of the things remaining constant, when there is a skill set common, when the competence level common, when the corporate expectation in terms of winning the corporate games are common, the same, then what would be the choice factor by the company between these two persons? I'm saying obviously, and I believe most people would agree, maybe, some minority may not. I appreciate the personal view of people. But then again, I believe, I guess, and I expect that most people should, support me in terms of supporting B. See, B is not a, easy playground. B's playground is a, tougher, is harder. B has to spoil more. B has to spend more. B has to, spend more energy into the system. B has to do many more things to reach the goal. But then B has a promise. What is that promise? B thinks that, oh yes, whenever I'm after work, after a kind of thing, whenever I'm after something, whenever I'm after, target, I have to fulfill the target, but without spoiling the fairness of doing the thing, without bending the fairness of doing the thing. Here comes the question of spirit of doing the work, and the spirit is the root word to spirituality. What is that called of spirituality? Spirituality is understanding the process or the method or the occasion of understanding the spirit which is lying within. Now now I come back to Immanuel Kant of his phenomenon and noumenon. And the phenomenon and noumenon, Lord Krishna has mentioned to Arjuna that you see, it was mentioned first of all in the Kathopanishad, wherein there was a young person of 10 years old, 10 years age, and he had a conversation with the god of death. And during the conversation, he wanted to learn the intrinsic identity of the self. And through that conversation, he was revealed the fact, which was again repeated by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, that Atmana Rathinam Vidhi Shariram Ratham tu Buddhi tu Sarati Vidhi Manaham Pragraham Evachaha. I mentioned this in Sanskrit original. The meaning of this is you consider that this human body is like a chariot. And this chariot is getting driven forward, backward, whatever. This chariot is getting driven by the human intellect. But again, willy-nilly, we tend to forget the fact that there is an intrinsic personality sitting within called Atman, and that's the supreme self, and which is present within you. And it's always present within every person, every individual, every living entity on earth. And that supreme entity in the form of Atman doesn't reveal itself always or in most of the cases unless you are after you seek his intervention in your life. So when I seek the intervention, it's like a chariot is there. I'm driving, my intellect is driving the chariot. And it says Manaha Pragraham Egocha, mind. Mind is the connecting cord. It is the connecting cord between what the horses are, pulling the chariot. The horses are your, the energy, the vital energy, the vital force that you have put into place, and that vital force is driving your chariot of life forward. But then the instruction and the direction, the speed, the control, everything is in the hand of the, the connecting cord, the mind, and its mind is getting it, connected with the intellect. So the intellect is a human intellect, and here, Kantian principle, Immanuel Kant says, this is the intellect that I am actually putting in and, putting in touch with the mind for driving the purpose of my life and the activities of my life, the thoughts of my life is, actually the empirical mind. What is it? The empirical mind is something which is, influenced by things from outside. For example, it's touched, by the emotions of others. For example, somebody says, somebody scolds you, somebody praises you. When somebody scolds you, you are demoralized. When somebody praises you, you are so, elated, you are so emphatic at that point of time, you become so joyful, happy. So you are influenced by others, others' observation of you, others, emotions about you. You are influenced by that. And similarly, the people have got the demand. When we consider the demand in the market, demand is somewhere connected with the need, somewhere it's not connected with the need. Sometimes demand is driven out of the need of individuals, the need of the collectives, need of the society, need of people, and need of art. But then and there are cases, and that's becoming more important these days for corporate world, that for demand comes out of non-need sector, meaning where you don't have actually the need for it. Yes, yet you go for the demand, yet you go for the buying of that object or that particular object or something. So an empirical mind would always look for both. It's connected with the world, connected with the, externals, through that kind of, identification of need, or going beyond that, which we call it the greed. See, so, which is beyond need, meaning which you don't want to actually in real sense of the term. But again, you're fallen, kind of greedy for that. Why? Because your friend is having that, or, the other person known to you is having that, the person, neighbor is having that, and so that gadget you need to have, that, position you need to have. So, you have fallen greedy for that. Why? Because you are alert to that. You are alert to the externalities. You are alert to the external world. So you are externally oriented, and therefore, that's going to influence you, and that's going to be the driving factor for you. Now, driving factor for you, when something happens for you, which is a condition for becoming angry, you become angry. Anger comes. Anger, catches you. Now, how does it happen? Anger, when it captures, I think corporate HR, throughout the world, they have been working on anger, jealousy, backbiting, gluttony, and greed within the organization. These are the psychological impurities of the mind present among people, who are working with you in the organization and spoiling the psychophysical energy of people in the system. As an individual, if you are, calculating always on selfish gains, say for example, if you're calculating always on something which I've mentioned already, jealousy, let's say you have developed a jealousy for somebody else. Let's say you have stored in anger for any reason. I'll tell you, there's a wonderful verse, wonderful advice given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna about anger. He says, Krodhat bhavati sammahan, meaning anger, krodhat, from anger, it leads to delusions. Sammohat buddhi nasham, sammohat smriti vibhrava. So smriti vibhrava, loss of, memory. When you are deluged, then you are not in touch with your proper memory. The memory is lost, and then you are in touch with the superficial memory, which is, a bit of it. And buddhi nashat pranashyati. Then when there's a, loss of memory, then your intellect is lost. And then when the intellect is lost, then it brings in disaster for you. So when you have entertained anger, therefore you are actually entertaining your own destruction, your own ridding of, ridding yourself, killing your purpose, killing your, potentials by being angry. But then anger has got an external cause. Why are you becoming angry? Why are you not in a position to absorb the threats from outside, shocks from outside? Because I've not learned how to absorb. How to learn? I'll tell you that, type A and type B, I've already mentioned, both are, competent enough. If I may call type A as a Ravana and type B as a Rama. Now, type B is a Rama, is a quality. See, Ravana was no less a warrior than Rama, almost the same, neck to neck. But then Ravana did not have the qualities which are worthy of a good person, a fair person. He was greedy about things of somebody else's position, or he was greedy about things of the world, greedy about things, beauties of the world, and then he was a covetous person. But then Rama, he was fighting for the righteousness, for a cause. He was fighting for a cause, having the same. So the difference is that he's a B type. When it comes to the B type, meaning you achieve the target, but you maintain the fairness of achieving the target. And the moment you are maintaining the fairness of achieving the target, then you are doing two things. You are achieving the target, on one hand, benefiting the organization and helping the organization out to stand up on its own values and ethos. On the other hand, by performing on the course of fairness, you have helped the society to survive for a longer period, meaning you have contributed to the sustainability of the society by being fair person, an honest person in the society, in the organization, and by being a truthful person in the organization, you have actually helped the organization to become a long-term player, a sustainable player in the market, in the society, in the world. And on the other hand, you have also helped the society to survive and thrive forward with fairness of things for a longer period. In our Vedas, there was a call given by the sages, Sam Gachudvang, Sam Bodudvang, Sangbu Manamsi Yanatam Deva Vage Yatha Purvi Sang Janana Upasate. Meaning, it's a call for the collective. Now, what is a collective? Collective, is a group of people for a purpose or purposeless. Let's say society. The society, there is a societal purpose. An organization, there is an organizational purpose. So here you have a purpose. There could be some place where there is no purpose. Also, there is a group of people. And now the group of people, what are the commonalities? How do you understand that you are not quite different? You are not different from others. You are the same. Because, why are you the same? Because, you carry the same intrinsics than others. the internal, what Immanuel Kant had mentioned, and what, a lot of death told to, Nachiketa, and Lord Krishna had mentioned to Arjuna. The intrinsic factor, the supreme seated within as a man, is the same everywhere. So therefore you can't differentiate. There cannot be any discrimination on caste, creed, religion, or any other factor. No discrimination. Everybody is your kin. Everybody is your friend. Everybody is your, is a close person. Therefore, what can you think of? You can think of Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramayaha. So you are not thinking of yourself. You are thinking of everybody. Now, a good mental would do what? Would think in terms of others. Swami Vivekananda had mentioned, not me, but thou first. Meaning you first. When in my design of things, you come first, then I'm a person of the society, I'm a person of the world. And when I come first, then I'm a selfish guy. I'm a selfish person. So what do I understand? I understand my gains. So whatever I do within the organization, I'll always try to find out my selfish gain. Willy-nilly here and there, I'll try to do some cliques here. Organizational cliques do develop because of that. Informal groupism and trying to subvert, trying to, disturb the organizational process and squeeze money, squeeze things from there, squeeze benefits from there. And, so selfish considerations and selfish gains become very important for a person with the A type. And the person with the B type understands that there is a world within. I need to manage myself. I have a world within. And in that world within, I am the master. I am the king. I am the king. Rabindranath Tagore had mentioned, Amra Savai Raja Bashkori Ei Raja Rajotte in Bengal. The meaning is we all are the kings and we live in the kingdom of this king. You are the king of yourself. That is your zone of discretion. Within yourself, there is nobody from outside who can rule you in that. So you are the ruler, you are the king. And what is that? Your mind. Say, for example, if I'm connected in a program, if I'm in a class as a student, my mind is expected to be in the class with the proceedings of the class and remain in that, and it's not expected to go away. But again, a diffused mind does what? A diffused mind is not, restrained there. It's not, confined in that place. There's a wonderful, there's a wonderful example given of human mind. It's said, is again given in one of our Upanishads. It's said the mind is like a monkey which is restless. Human mind. I'm talking about mind of every person. I'm including myself in that. Please don't mind that I'm not, telling anybody else than me that whose mind is a monkey mind. Everybody's mind is that. And you see, that means restless. Mind is restless by nature. Human mind. And assume that the human mind is beaten by a scorpion. And a scorpion bites that mind. A scorpion, assume that scorpion to be there and it bites that same, monkey, and mind is like that. Meaning it becomes, violent. Mind becomes violent. What? When I'm aspiring something for my selfish gain. Maybe, I develop, I nurture jealousy and anger in that. And, with that, my mind becomes so violent and, inside. So I spoil myself. When I'm into work, my total mind is not into the work. I'm a teacher. When I'm teaching, half of my mind is teaching and other half is calculating, oh, yes, what is going to be my gain, extra gain, additional gain? How do I benefit myself going additional? So meaning a part of the mind is engaged in other things than the focus of the work. When I'm into a company, in a company's work, half of my mind or a part of my mind is given to the company, remaining part is taken for other selfish considerations. So what am I doing? I'm actually betraying the cause and purpose of the organization. I'm actually cheating the, the organization. I'm actually cheating the society. I'm cheating the world. I'm sorry I have used this word because, this is a word we should correctly and directly, create a meaning out of it. And therefore, when I'm not devoting fully, when I'm not devoting my mind fully to the context of the work and the, theme of the work or the cause of the work, I am actually, doing an unfair thing. This is not fair. This is unfair. I am deviating from the truthful purpose of life. I'm deviating from the truthful cause of life. I'm debating from the basic sense of truth and the sense of spirit or the spirit of the life. The basic spirit of life is what? It should be always fairness. Let us have a fairness and goodness and fairness for everybody. But goodness or fairness of everybody is possible by those who can understand the inner world first. Now, I'll take an example. I'll take a reference from Westland of T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is mentioning that, when I'm climbing the hill, I count that you and me, we are only two persons. But again, every time I find there is a third. A third is there, who is that third? I'm unable to understand. But then later on, that understanding had, revealed in him, wherein he understood, yes, the third is there. An universal cosmic associate of yourself. A universal cosmic associate of yourself is there. There is a spirit which is with you within yourself. And the spirit, acts and works only when you are tuned to the spirit. If you deny the presence of the spirit within, then you deny the entry to your own, you restrict yourself from entering your own inner world. So that is the process of entering within your world. Our sages have given a wonderful, beautiful concept. The concept is the concept of Panch Vayu. The concept of Panch Vayu is 5 different identities of the air. The air that we inhale and the air that we exhale, the air after we inhale has got a 5 different purposeful, existence, purposeful travel within the body, within the system. Prana Vayu, like, the Prana Vayu, Prana, Apana, Samana, Vana, Udana. There's 5 different aspects of the air. Now, what are those? Because, when I'm inhaling air from outside, I'm expecting a fresh, good air with full of oxygen, but I don't get that. I get a mix of it. And the mix comes within. So there should be some mechanism within which would screen out it and which would get, oxygen out of it for our purposeful utilization. The goodness has to be extracted from that. So the goodness is extracted and absorbed in your process. That is the classification. Since it's not a demonstration session, I'm not getting into the detailed analysis. However, this is available and anybody can track through. So this Panch Vayu, what it's doing is actually taking out the goodness in different forms for different organs of human system. And after, you're taking out the goodness from that composite air, the one that you are getting throwing out is actually required by others in the system, others in the cosmic system. In the, for example, plants, heart shafts, trees, they need that. So you see, it's a balance that the cosmic system has got. Unless we take care of the balance, we actually destroy or we actually dismantle the balance within the cosmic system. So therefore, the concept of goodness is there everywhere present in this cosmic system. We as an individual, you and me as an individual, we need to take care of that. I've mentioned about this Rigvedic concept of Sang Gachudvang, Sang Badudvang, Sang Bo Manamsi Janatam. Meaning, let's all have, the unity of purpose. Let's all collect together, combine together, and have the same kind of destination and goal of fairness and goodness. Sang Badudvang, let's have the same tongue uttered, let's all combine the same goodness, and let's offer that goodness to everybody. You think about the goodness, I think about the goodness, he and she thinks about the goodness, and therefore, everybody thinks about the goodness of others. So when everybody thinks of goodness of others, then it becomes a, society, institution, organizations, everywhere it's the goodness prevailing. And therefore, the goodness becomes the dominant force. So people would be striving for, people would be, working for, people would actually develop things for, people would contribute to this goodness of the universal system. And that goodness is something which should always infuse, the spirit of goodness within the individuals. And the spirit of goodness is a spirituality. Spirituality is not a religion. Religion is different from spirituality. Spirituality is fundamental to individuals. Religion is the process of maintaining and adhering to the certain principles which are drawn out of the, spirituality. And so in some cases, more rituals than less of spirituality. Some other cases, more spirituality, less rituals. So it varies. So I'm talking about the spirituality, the intrinsic spirit of people. And when the spirit is there, when you understand the spirit, then you understand that the metal should be reformed, refreshed. Metal should be developed. I made a mention about certain metals, for example, iron, gold, silver, all these, several metals I mentioned the names of. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna gives an advice to Arjuna, saying that there are two broad classifications, two broad types of attributes which human being can possess, or human being does possess in his or her personality. One set of attribute is known as a Daivi Guna, the divinely personalities, the personality of goodness, personality with good attributes. The other set of attributes is known as the Asuric Guna. Asuri is, the demonic attributes for a personality. So, in A and B, I would, mention A as a demonic and B as a Daivi. Why B as a Daivi? B thinks that, yes, I need to achieve the target without sacrificing the values that I have inherited, without sacrificing the values and attributes that I know my organization, my company, my institution maintains and offers, and my society wants me to follow that. So without sacrificing that, I'm going to achieve the target. Yes, I know my way, my path is harder, tougher. It will take more time. It will cost me more. But still, I'm determined. I'm destined to, take that path because, that's not an easy cut. But I'm destined to take that. I'll take an example of Tata's. Mr. Sena is here. I'll take the example of, your, uh, mm, of Gopala Krishna's, there's a bonsai manager. Probably you all know, or those who don't know, I'll give a reference of Bonsai Manager by Gopala Krishna. He's in the Tata board. And I liked his concept and the concept of great personality by, Lee and Duckworth. Lee and Duckworth has come up with the concept of great personality, which is actually a derivative of what Peter Drucker had, closed his, public bodies, public sayings or public writings on, saying that spirituality, the art of, the giving. We know what are our rights, but we are most of the cases not aware of what are our duties. And duty orientation is more important, according to the last, saying of Peter Drucker, than the rights orientation. As an employee, the rights I know. As a lady, the rights I know. As a young person, the rights I know. As a young man, as a son, the right I know. As a father, the right I know. As a individual, as a citizen, the citizen's right I know. And people are out there on streets and in groups to exercise the rights. The trade unions are there, different associations are there, different organizations are there, different social sites are there. There are a lot of activities and initiatives on the rights. Hardly there are some on the duties. What are our duties? If our teacher doesn't do his or her duty properly, then can we expect the rights of a student getting fulfilled? My answer to this question, which I have raised to myself, is, I can't. If I have to fulfill my, if I have to satisfy the rights of my students, then I have to go beyond my rights and, do my duties. So then what would be my priority? As a teacher, my priority should be my duty, not my right. my duty should come first. Duty is what? We mentioned in EIILM Kolkata, we mentioned, for a philosophical statement, Chatra Sukhe Sukham Shikshakaha, Chatra Nam Tu Hite Hitam. The meaning of this, Shikshak, a teacher, should draw the happiness and, should feel, well after the happiness and well-being is conferred to the student. After a student has assumed and has understood and has realized and has experienced the happiness and well-being, then only the teacher, gets the, happiness and well-being, in his or her home life. And if that is the attitude, when this is the attitude of a person, then the person is actually after the duties, not the, rights. Yes, the rights are essential, but the duty first, right next. As a young person, what is our duty? We need to identify. We need to identify what are our duties. Our sages have said that you are indebted. Pancharin is there. Devarin, Rishirin, Redin. You have got a, Devarin, cosmic sources. You have got a, indebtedness. You are indebted to these cosmic sources, the light, the air, the water. You can't just, destroy this thing. You cannot just destroy the environment. You cannot destroy the ecology. If you are doing anything harmful, then you try to replenish. You try to give back. So giving back, that should come out. That should be your autonomous response from yourself. When does it come? The moment the person has understood the real spirit within, then this awareness comes automatically. You don't have to campaign. There's an auto response of the person, and the person feels, I've taken so much from this art system, I need to give back. I'm taking so much from my society, I need to give back. I'm taking so much from my organization, I need to contribute back. I have taken so much from my family, I need to give back. I have taken so much from my known people, I need to give back. So this, giving as a principle is generated only when the spirit is actually unfolded within. This is a kind of unfoldment. I call it like an example, we, occasionally give that in the morning lotus, which is there, it's covered with the green covers, and the moment the sun rises in the east, with the solar rays touching upon the, surface of the green cover, it opens up, it unfolds. The unfoldment does, every individual human being has got immense, immense potential. Every young person, every person on earth has got immense potential. It's not dependent factor of, it's not connected in any way with your marks, your results, your, achievements so far, your standard in society, your economic standard, your lineage. Is not connected with anything. It's you. It's an individual. Is an individual which has got the prospect and the potential which is enormous, infinite. And that's what is the unfoldment when there is a touch of sun rays. There's the lotus starts opening up, and gradually you find the petals, you find a beautiful flower. And the beautiful flower, William Shakespeare says, I'm a flower, I want to become a flower, in one of his sonnets. It says that I want to become a flower, what do I do? I want to give. What do I give? I have got a fragrance, I have got a beauty. I don't want to absorb my fragrance. I don't want to, experience my beauty. My fragrance is for the world. My beauty is for the world. I want to make the world beautiful. That's why I'm offering beauty to the world. I want to, make the world a better place to survive, to live, and to grow. That's why I'm offering my fragrance to the world. And that's what is a beautiful flower I want to become. And let that beautiful flower be, take blossoming across in the world, across everywhere. That's what is a, understanding of your self. And the moment we understand ourselves, our intrinsic self, we understand the worth of it. And we would always, we'll always go by that. And we would always support the view that, oh yeah, I need to, discover my inner world. And I need to understand what enormous potential is there. And then I understand that the goodness has to prevail upon, and I would always go for that goodness. Okay, thank you so much. I would like to stop here, and at the end, I want to, express my sincere thanks to all participants, who have joined this program today and have spent their time, to hear me for this period of my talking here. And I express my sincere thanks and gratitude to Calcutta Management Association, and also the organizers of EIILM Kolkata, particularly my distinguished colleague, Dr. Jayant Shaha and his team. Thank you very much. Namaskar. If there is any question at the end, I'd love to be, on this side to give some responses to the question, if not an answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Before I request Mr. Dutt, Mr. S.K. Dutt, could I request you to kindly switch on your camera? Mr. Dutt, Mr. Judhajit Das, he has also joined, I can see. Thank you, all of you. And Mr. Rao is also there. So we are absolutely, we can start off with the next session. But before I do that, I thank Professor R.B. Banerjee for taking us through this very interesting session. Before I request Mr. Dutt to take over, I would just take a few more minutes to introduce Mr. Dutt, who really requires no introduction, but I'll just take a few moments to introduce him. Mr. S.K. Dutt is a senior business administration, HR, organization development, and change management professional, and a qualified coach and a mentor. A postgraduate alumnus of the University of Oxford Said Business School, Mr. Dutt has over 3.5 decades of industry experience, out of which he has worked as the head or group head HR for over 2.5 decades. He has worked in reputed Indian corporates and MNCs, namely the ADG Group, the Larsen & Toubro, Brooke Bond, MCO, to name a few. With experience and expertise in all domains of HR, including organization strategy and strategic HR, organization development, and change management, Mr. Dutt has extensive experience in leadership development and C-suite coaching and mentoring besides large-scale operations. He has led...
Anirban, maybe I'll interrupt and thank you. I think the pen profile of this got mixed up. This is a little longer. So sorry for the interruption, but I need to save time. So I think you read from the other one. So no problem. Sorry for interrupting. This way, my apologies. But just for the sake of time, I think we'll do that.
It's absolutely up to you, sir. This is your session, so
Thank
you are the boss here, sir. Please take over.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Thanks to the speakers for coming. Thanks to you, sir. It's up to you now. Mr.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that the audience does not get bored with my profile, So, okay.
No problem, sir.
So thank you so very much for the invitation, CMA and EIILM Kolkata. It's indeed a privilege and honor to be here and on this very, very interesting topic, both in terms of what Dr. Banerjee dealt with in terms of, self-management as corporate excellence, and also, like the role of values, ethics, and spirituality in management. I think it is a very, very relevant topic in today's world. I am also extremely privileged and happy to have my industry fraternity friends, Judhajit, Mr. M.V.N. Rao joining me. And of course, Dr. Banerjee is there, and Pallavi is expected anytime. So thank you all for being here. Thanks. And once again, thanks for the invitation. So self-management, like whether, to take the name of even Peter Drucker, somebody as eminent and him has also said that, for any leadership, self-management is the foundation stone. And then when we talk in the context of leadership, leadership cannot be there without a context and a purpose. So leadership presupposes context and purpose, and leadership cannot be operated without values and ethics, and if we may add, without spirituality. And a little more of that, a while later. So while we discuss the subject of values, ethics, and spirituality, as much as all of us will agree that this is an extremely relevant topic, sometimes it can appear to be a little fuzzy, a little abstract, but in the context of, so therefore, in today's discussion, we will also try to make it, keep it as simple as is possible. With examples that we can relate, with examples of what we individually believe in, with examples of what could be the roles as individuals, as professionals, and also in the organizational context. So to that extent, we will keep it simple, and we'll keep it something that you can relate to. It is also very pertinent to note, and I couldn't help but also mention this now yesterday in the context of the judgment, and we are not going into the merits or what is the case, but I couldn't but think of quoting Mr. Ratan Tata in the context of the Supreme Court judgment, and when he wrote on that, so he said that it is not winning and losing more important than winning and losing, and I quote him: "The judgment upholding all the appeals of Tata Sons is a validation of the values and ethics that have always been the guiding principles of the group." So what struck me was, and of course today we were supposed to deal with this particular thing, that even a group like Tata, as large a group like Tata, and they are known for their values and ethics as much as several other Indian corporates are. So it is an iteration of the subject that we are dealing with, and that he chose to mention this even in the in the context of such a huge win for his group, a validation from the Supreme Court. And as I said, we are not getting into that side of what was the issue. I am more focusing on the fact that he chose to highlight this. Before I hand over to my esteemed panelists, I wanted to also mention, because spirituality can be, it is important that we set the context of spirituality. And I was also, honestly looking up at some definitions in terms of what could be the best definition that perhaps could, suit our context of discussion today, without limiting the speakers in any way by that definition. So one simple definition which I liked was workplace, and I'm reading it out. Workplace spirituality is a framework of organizational values, and values comes here, evinced in the culture that promote employees' experience of transcendence through the work process, facilitating their sense of being connected to the other in a way that provides feeling of completeness and joy. So I like every word of this, it covers, the spirituality framework covers values, it covers culture, it promotes employee experience of transcendence through work processes, facilitating their sense of being connected to each other in a way that provides the feeling of completeness and joy. So I think that is a good context for us to, start the discussion. I can see Pallavi. So Pallavi, welcome. Good evening. I'll just quickly read out in no particular order the short profiles of the speakers, the panelists we have today, even as I invite them to, share their thoughts on the subject. So we of course have Dr. Banerjee, and we've heard him for the last hour or so speaking on the subject of self-management and in the context of corporate excellence. He is the chairman and director of EIILM Kolkata, and he served as a professor of finance and ethics at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, for close to a decade. An international educationist, he is currently the member of Committee for Higher Education Induction Program, University Grants Commission, and the board member of National Council of Science Museum, Government of India. He holds a PhD in management from Calcutta University and has done his postdoc research at Stockholm University. His publications include more than 200 articles, papers in prestigious national and international journals. He has authored 9 books, the latest being a Sage publication entitled Art and Science of Management in the Digital Era. Welcome once again, sir. I would now read out Judhajit's profile. Of course, it's indeed a pen profile. I mean, his accomplishments are, of course, much larger than what I get to read out here. Judhajit is CHRO at ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. He started his career in 1995 after graduating from XLRI and has now been with ICICI Prudential for 20 years. He is currently responsible for HR operations and customer service, admin and infrastructure, IT infrastructure and CSR. Welcome, Judhajit. I now have Mr. Rao, Mr. MVN Rao. He is the Group Head Human Resources for L&T Hydrocarbon Engineering Limited. He is leading the global HR function to deliver business value. Also, as a member of the executive management team, he drives the leadership and organizational agenda. After post-graduation in human resource management from XLRI, Mr. Rao has led the global HR functions in leading organizations spanning engineering, projects, manufacturing, information technology, and pharma industries for more than 3 decades, with extensive experience in leading global and multicultural teams, top-level hiring, organization development, change management, etc. MVN teaches us various management institutions, speaks in leadership programs, internal and external, and other forums like NASSCOM, CII, NHRD, NIPM, TEDx, etc. MVN has great interest in development of leadership, personal effectiveness, team building, and organizational development. His interests lie in enhancing the capacity of performing managers, senior executives to become better and reach greater heights. He has been designated as the coaching guide for CEOs pursuing coaching accreditation with CFI. He's also the president of CFI's Mumbai-Pune chapter. Welcome, MVN. I now have Pallavi Menon's profile. She's an accomplished professional and an HR practitioner and learner with over 16 years of industry experience in commercial and product development, IT space, skilled in strategic planning and implementation, people management, influencing and negotiation skills with a passion for learning and development. Currently working in Waters Corporation as Director HR, HRBP for India, Southeast Asia and ANZ. Pallavi has prior experience in working with organizations like Danaher Corporation, Ricoh, Reliance Communications. She comes with a short stint in sales and marketing as well prior to the career in HR. A certified trainer from IST New Delhi with numerous organizational certificates to name. Pallavi enjoys training and coaching for performance and potential. Welcome, Pallavi. May I now request MVN to start? And as I said, I'd go random in no particular order. MVN to maybe set the context and also, share your thoughts in terms of what today's topic means to you and what are some of the things that you are practicing as an individual, for your employees and also as an organization. An overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Skitty. Thanks, Banerjee Saab. I think it was very, very interesting listening to you as we started off, and we came in a little early, and I think I gained a lot listening to you. And I think your knowledge about the Sanskrit and various other things, I think really put us, I think I'm going first. So with your permission. Actually, SKD is very interesting. The other day I was at a dining table. I was telling my wife and my daughters that there is a topic I'm going to speak on called values, ethics, and something, spirituality in the workplace, in the corporate, in the world, in the management. And my elder daughter is around 24 years old and who, first of all, anyway, never liked the kind of company I work for. She says that you work for Hydrocarbon and you are the guys who are actually causing all the pollution in the world. And you bring out all the fossil fuels and burn them and make sure the pollution and the climate change is occurring because of you guys. And then really, I don't know what kind of a purpose and values you guys talk about. Okay, it was a very interesting start for the conversation as we had. And then it set me thinking, actually. Many years back, if I was having dinner with my father, did I ever talk about any values or anything like that, or any conversation did ever take place, or purpose did it take place? Then I read a book somewhere in between. I think a very old book, all of us know. Maslow says the hierarchy of the needs moves up. And when the basic needs are taken care of, people go to self-actualization. So I was just wondering, I think maybe for a moment, I thought maybe my daughters have reached their 4th level or 5th level already very quickly because their basic needs are taken care of and somebody is providing for that kind of a story. Having heard that, I think my own take, you know what, I was just thinking, do companies start with values or values get formed along the way? I mean, I've seen lots of companies and I work for a company which is 80 years old. And when somebody tells me these are the values of the company, or this is how we run the company, which we can call simply as the ethics with which we conduct our business. And The third one, the most important thing is that in my view, spirituality is that it connects all these three things in my view. It is basically alignment of the head and the heart and creating that purpose and meaning, and by which people are drawn to such kind of organizations, number one. And hopefully, I think their values and the organization values come together and they conduct their business in such a fashion that it leads to what I call as so-called happy organization, not the happiness which we talk about in modern day organizations where people have this Friday even get-togethers or something like that, but more the happiness in which a success is defined in a much larger context. Success is defined is a lot of satisfaction where the individual values, org values come together, and the business is run in a fashion where people feel proud at the end of the day that I work for a company like that which does, and meaningful relationship with all its stakeholders. And of course, it also provides me space to actually realize myself and also have a meaningful relationship with the people. I mean, this is what I believe. Whether the organization start like that, I always believe that I think if I start a company tomorrow, I start with an idea. I start with a commercial idea and get on with that in that fashion. And my individual values, I start using as I start developing the organization. This is where when I look back, when we see the founders of our corporation, Mr. Hook Larsen and Soren Tubro, maybe they had those values of actually humility, putting your head down, customer service, and so on and so forth. And then they started doing their work, and their values became the group values, the small groups of people who came together. And as the organization grew, and many of these values became the way we do our conduct the business in respect to that. And there's another take with respect to is that ethics, in my view, is the relationships and the way we conduct our business with the various stakeholders, how we deal with investors, how we deal with customers, how we deal with employees, how we deal with so many other people. Of course, these days, there are many governing standards that have come into the place, and I'm sure others we will explore as we go forward. And there are a lot of United Nations charters, SDG goals, ESG kind of setup. You have so many of these things to come in. But what I realize is that if human beings are the most important, and human spirits need to be realized, and management's main function is to make that happen, I think these three become very, very vital for the company. Having proper values in place and conduct your business in ethical fashion, and also create a space for the people to realize the alignment between the head and the heart. I think that's what I believe. I think that's a journey. And it is becoming to the fore more often now, because most of the time we not only talk about actually making the bottom lines these days, we also talk about the triple bottom line and many other things. And these concepts are being discussed, talked about, and organizations work towards that. And if you look at it, using these, the three triple bottom line, the many things which are done in the organization, because today we talk about a total well-being of a human in an organization. I don't think I talked about it myself 3 decades back when I started off in HR. So I think you can see as we go along, we are talking not just about physical well-being, but we talk about the mental, social, and the complete well-being of a human being. How do we look into these kind of things? I think there are lots of these things. I'm sure we go forward and explore it. I like to, my colleagues also will have something to share, and then we will pick back and talk about things. And this is my initial context in which I talk about. I'm sure our journey is how we fall down, get up, try out, and fail, and go forward in this journey. That's it. As a professional practicing one, that's my journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, MVN. Very well stated. Thank you. Thanks. Pallavi, of course, please do give the context in terms of your thoughts on the subject. May I also request you to specifically also speak in the context of the topic that we have a little bit about organizational culture and how that connects with the overall theme as well.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I would like to extend my gratitude to CMA and EIILM Kolkata, along with Mr. Datta, for this great learning opportunity on such a critical topic. More happy to do this because I'm an alumni from IMA as well. Generally, values have been taken to refer to moral ideas, right? They are general conceptions. Some people say they are needs, preferences, dispositions, and so on. But more or less, they describe a notion of rightness, what good looks like, and inherent desirability. And it has a major influence on all of us. Our behavior, our attitudes, creates the broad guidelines in terms of what's right and wrong for us. Now we all know that organizational values guide everything you do at work. In many organizations, you have code of ethics, you have principles, you have a company statement, mission and vision. We have a lot of efforts like having compliance systems and processes in the organization and so on. Very similar to the values, ethics is also very related, right? They talk about what is wrong, what is right in human behavior and actions. And again, very much aligned to both of these aspects is workplace spirituality. So I think all the three topics are very much related. Workplace spirituality talks about people finding a sense of wholeness or a oneness in an organization completely, much beyond their compensation or performance. Talking about this topic, can take on days and weeks of discussions and inputs to reach even the first layer of it, because it's so vast of its own. However, at least given a chance, I will definitely make an attempt to talk about them as an overall concept, and also try and link to organization behavior, especially their impact on leadership with some of the examples. Now, from the organizational culture piece, which Mr. Datta mentioned now, what I feel is every organization prefers some values over the others. That creates their culture, right? And having a value system and values in management has a lot of benefits. It guides employee behavior. It tells them what is right and wrong, what's acceptable in the organization. It provides a solid foundation for employment policies. It sets your organization apart from the competitors, reduces the risk of inappropriate behavior, and also has a lot of emphasis on employment value proposition. For example, a college or a university might value, let's say, independence or pursuit of knowledge, intellectual rigor as its core value, whereas a listed telecommunications organization might prefer customer service, network reliability, or profit-making as its core values. On the other hand, an organization which has focus on medical devices or precision products could vouch for accuracy, speed, the concept of continuous improvement as the focal areas of values. For this reason, there is no such thing as one size fits all kind of code of ethics and culture. As an HR practitioner, and also from a leader's perspective, it is important to mention here that having a clarity in your values will also help your organization attract the right people. I do focus on all these aspects while hiring a candidate myself. The easiest example that I see is that when we sit on looking at the technical suitability or the business acumen fitment for the candidates, we also look at the cultural fitment to the organization, because it sets up mutual expectations for future actions. And I strongly believe that organizational culture and values, they reflect and impact all, I would say, if not most, our day-to-day decisions. How do your employees interact and work with each other to achieve results? Are they target-driven? Are they customer-focused, ambitious, compliant? Does your organization keep the promise made to its stakeholders? Are you looking at a sustainability index? Is your organization responsible as a corporate in the products and services that they deliver? Or are you an equal opportunity employer in reality, being inclusive, or do you have discriminative policies? Does your organization have regular audits? Your financial documents very clear? Or just the basic that, do we encourage employees to behave respectfully with each other? Do you have a speak up avenue or a whistleblowing system when you see something wrong that you can escalate? And of course, do you feel that it's safe to report it? You name any aspect of our daily life at work, and you will find the impact and influence of values and ethics in them. So baseline is, organizational values either exist in the minds and hearts of employees or absolutely not at all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Very well said. Judhajit, if I may request you to share your thoughts and maybe also bring in the dimension of, specifically the employee connect as also what you are doing for customers. in the light of this as well. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, right. Thank you, Mr. Dutt, and it's a great pleasure and privilege to be here this evening with all of you. And my thanks to Calcutta Management Association, Mr. Shenoy and Mr. Bhattacharya, and EIILM, Professor Banerjee, for organizing this event. And wonderful to have fellow panelists, esteemed fellow panelists with me. And so what I thought is Mr. Rao and Pallavi have shared their take. I think if we take a step back and ask the question, I mean, what is the context in which we are living? And I think it's important because we've just gone through a year of upheaval. It's been one of those tectonic shifts that have probably nobody ever anticipated. And we've seen 2-3 things that have emerged. One is the at-scale shift to what we call remote work. I mean, if somebody told me last March that organizations will operate 100% from home, I would not have imagined that it would be possible. But yes, that did happen. The fact that customers have adopted to digitization and automation at a rate which is much faster than was probably anticipated. It was happening over the last so many years, but there has been definitely an acceleration of that. And also the reallocation of resources that have happened. Our capital has been guided into, for example, making those technological shifts happen and newer kinds of products and services to meet with the challenges of a post-pandemic world. So while the new normal is yet to be finalized, we have to understand, and maybe some 5 years, 6 years back, or even a bit earlier than that, there was this coinage of this word called VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and we used to talk about it. But frankly speaking, the only volatility, I mean, not that we have not seen volatility. We saw the financial crisis of 2009. We saw the dot-com bust in 2000. But the pandemic has been obviously the mother of all disruptions and volatility that we have seen in the last, at least in my working career. And I think for me personally, one of the big learnings has been, this was the first time in my professional working career that health and safety of well-being became the #1 business priority over everything else. And I think that was very heartening. And also the role that human resources function had to play in making, standing by employees in their hour of need is something that most progressive organizations would have done. And I think across the spectrum, at least I can speak for large organizations. And large organizations have deep pockets, so therefore they're in a better place to deliver some of this. Definitely, organizations went out of their way and beyond to ensure the health and safety and well-being of their employees during this time. So having put this context, I think the question that we have to talk about is, what is the purpose? I mean, why do we have values or ethics or workplace spirituality? And I think no conversation on values can happen without talking about purpose, because companies that execute with purpose, it is understood now, can create longer term sustainable value. So this word sustainability is again not new. It's been talked about for the last 20 years, but suddenly there is a huge interest. And in fact, I would say, since I head what we call the environment, social and governance, ESG, the framework, and a lot of listed companies are now adopting ESG standards. I want to make a mention of it. There is a huge need from investors globally that organizations should start doing disclosures on their ESG and getting scored on it. And ESG is about really environment, social and governance. I've not spent time talking about it here, but the larger aspect of sustainability. And sustainability can only happen when there is a core purpose which anchors, which is the why we exist. And of course, the values, which is really about how do we do what we have to do, because there is a why and a how and a what that has to be answered. And it's a very fundamental question, because some of this, while may sound like mere words, if all of us as professionals can connect to the deeper purpose or the deeper values and guided by those actions, they serve as an anchor to help us navigate through, because there are a lot of decisions to be taken. So I'll give a couple of examples in our context, because I've been with ICICI Prudential Life for the last 20 years and been part of the team that has helped define the vision, the purpose, the values, and the code of conduct and what we call ethics So I'll spend some time just giving a flavor of what we've done. And before that, I worked with GE. I worked with GE Capital, which is Jack Welch was probably one person who GE was known as the companies for leaders and for values, because he popularized the word values and made it an integral part of doing everything that GE did. Since I come from that background, later we can also talk about how GE propagated values in the organization. But to go back again, to summarize, I think in our context, we are a life insurance company. So we see ourselves as trustees of public money. It's important to understand our purpose. What is a trustee of public money? Trustee of public money is that we keep money in, say we have a fiduciary responsibility to keep the money safe of our policy holders and return it back to them when they need it, either in terms of when the policy matures or in the terms of a claim, which is a very important moment of truth. So we have articulated our vision as to be an enduring organization which serves the long-term savings and protection needs of our customers with sensitivity. Each of these words have been chosen with a lot of care. Sensitivity is because at the end of the day, we have to be sensitive to the needs of the customers. On a technical point, we cannot be repudiating a claim. And that is an important aspect, because the end of the day, or we cannot be selling a product. For example, we have a value called customer first. How do we operationalize it? The way we operationalize it is by saying that we should not manufacture a product that we are ashamed of selling to our friends or family. Or when we are dealing with a customer issue or a customer grievance, we have to be fair to the customer, at the same time fair to the company. So these are certain principles that we set which guide our decision making, because there are many occasions that come where it's not easy to take up. There is no set precedent. For example, the question with the pandemic, top line volumes were down in the first quarter. So what is the right thing to do? And I think some of the earlier speakers talked about it. What is the right thing to do in such a situation? You can save cost by, asking employees, cutting their salary. You can ask employees to go. You can also, some organizations have asked, stop paying their vendors and their partners. In turn, therefore, they have to ask the employees to go. Is that the right thing to do? Because we have to understand that if you really want to be an enduring institution, then you have to also follow what are called sustainable practices that engender trust. And engender trust is not just with the employees alone, with customers, with the larger community and the stakeholders, which is the triple bottom line that Mr. Rao talked about. So I think I just give a flavor in terms of how the vision and the values of an organization can be intertwined very powerfully. And if you connect with it at a visceral level, at a deeper level, it also brings out the best in all of us. I mean, there is a very it's a very simple saying. And so there was this mason who was laying bricks. And the question that was asked to him is, what are you doing? And the mason said that I'm building a mansion. So he had a vision, a larger purpose of being part of a bigger whole. And not just, he could have also said, I'm only laying a brick. So when you connect with the larger purpose, you also felt a sense of, if I were to use the word motivation, to do something bigger, because all of us would like our lives to, and it gives us meaning. And I think that's very powerful. Linking it back to ethics now, the way I look at it is that values are something that we encourage our employees to do. We encourage our employees to live by. These are not, they're different from what we call the code of conduct, because the code of conduct clearly defines what is not acceptable and what will be capital punishment. So for example, a fraud is obviously has to be met with capital punishment. That is very clear. There is the law of the land. Any violation of regulation, and we are a regulated entity, or a statutory violation will automatically meet an immediate penalty. So that is one part of it. But between the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do, there is always a bit of a gray zone. And that is where the ethics come in. And some of this is about drawing your red line in the sand as an individual, and the organization has to also decide what is the red line it will draw. For example, will it be totally transparent about the charges of a product and explain to customers, or rather will it hide the charges in fine print so that the customer is not aware? So, and there are many examples of such in financial services, and I'm sure for all other products and services. So ethics is something that which tells you about what you will not do. Values is about what you will do. And the whole aspect of spirituality, as I see it, is really at a more, for more relevant from a senior management perspective, because the larger question I think that organizations have to, senior management has to answer is the organization a vehicle for their ambition, or the institution comes first? if the institution comes first, all of us are technically then, we are servants of the institution. We have a role to play and we are trustees of the chair that we sit in, because we have to also understand as professionals, we come and go, but the institution has to endure. An institution can only endure when organizations do the right thing. And I think the whole purpose, the whole concept of having purpose, values, ethics, and spirituality dovetails all of this together to anchor us into doing the right thing. And that is the way I like to see about it. And also to, I think more importantly, not about doing the right thing, it is very important to know what is not the right thing to do, or what should one not do. And that is even harder, because we can always talk about, being humility is a great value, but is it okay to spread disinformation about your colleague through the grapevine? These are questions, and these are questions that only individuals have to answer. So I think some of them is about drawing a line in the sand about each one of us as an individual, and more importantly, at an organization level, the leadership has to draw the line in the sand of what it will tolerate and what it will not tolerate. And of course, then there is the aspect of what we said, the legality of it all, which is the law of the land. And of course, nobody has any dispute over that. But between the law of the land and the right thing, there is always a gray zone. And that is where it's very important to establish very strong principles of an ethics to make sure that, therefore, the organization, because it's a slippery slope. And the closer you get to the red line, you may cross over the cliff. And that is the destruction of the organization. And that is what investors are also looking at. And the reason I'm saying investors are looking at, because they're sitting with lots of capital and they want to make sure that they're investing in companies that are going to be sustainable. So nobody wants to invest in companies which are likely to be doing practices which can lead to volatility or unsustainability in the medium to long term. So that is my thought on this. And linking it back to the question of employee connect, Mr. Dutt, as you said, if you are able to sharply articulate, and HR has a great role to play to sharply articulate it, that creates a powerful sense of connect with employees, and that will spur deeper motivation. And there is a lot of research done by Daniel Pink, where he talks about the 3 drivers of motivation, which I resonate with. And there are, of course, lots of theories of motivation, but which talks about having a purpose, which talks about empowerment and autonomy. But purpose is fundamental, because if you without purpose, how do we make meaning of what we do? And purpose without values, again, it does not have any meaning. So values and purpose, ethics and workplace spirituality, in my mind, are all intertwined, and they serve to connect with employees at a visceral level. And that brings in the discretionary effort, that extra effort to make sure that all of us then are making sure we operate as guardrails for the organization and ensure that we follow sustainable practices. So that is, it's been a bit long, but thank you so much for this opportunity. But hope I've been able to clarify.
Been very useful. Thank you. Thanks, Judhajit. Thank you. Dr. Banerjee, of course, if you'll please share your thoughts on the topic, and also additionally, sort of trying to use your experience. You have seen the transition, from insofar as the society is concerned, insofar as the corporates are concerned, you have seen the transition of awareness, what it was. See, values, ethics, spirituality always operated. But in corporates and elsewhere, you have also seen this awareness growing. So what are your thoughts also when you speak in terms of this growing awareness, as much as there, I suppose, is also a long way to go? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good evening. And I just mentioned that it's so much enriching being here, meaning all speakers, panelists, Mr. Rao, Mr. Dash, and Ms. Menon. It's been, and also the coordination by Mr. Dutt, is being really enriching, and I'm very happy being here. Yes, I come back on your question, maybe in another few minutes time, I'll try to give my response to that. First of all, I'll give response, meaning I thought that I need to tell something about the discussion that Mr. Rao had with his elder daughter yesterday on the dinner table. And she had raised the question that being in the hydrocarbon, you are actually the pollutant in the society, and you are creating problems, for the environment, and we are here to cleanse the environment, So, what right you have to talk about the values, or kind of thing, kind of that notion. And I'm not saying that she's asking this kind of question, but kind of there's a kind of notion. See, in this world, whatever we are doing, we are always in a mix of things. So, certain things we are destined to do, which are good for the growth, but may not be good for our spiritual well-being. And we are destined to do that. I'll refer to a European study on the values. European Value Studies is published by Oxford. It's available. It's done long back. It's done in the first immediately after 2000, and it was a pan-European study. We had some interactions in Germany, in Switzerland, in some part of USA, some interaction with students on this. How do you perceive? The moment people talk about values, spirituality, things, it appears that it's something different. I'm in a workplace, I'm doing something, I have a ambition, I have a career path, and that person is talking about values, and that person is talking about spirituality. So should we, that you see, there's a different. I don't come under this. I don't put myself into that bracket. I'm different, and this. So it's alienated. So kind of divergence created between that. European value study shows that there has been a gradual improvement towards understanding of spiritual values for day-to-day activities and day-to-day thought process. And the understanding is towards developing two parameters, two factors. One is the factor of trust. The other one is the factor of integrity. So one is trust and integrity. So we took part in, and we were also, one of those movers in trust and trustworthiness. So we had a, international program on trust factor. And then my objective was to tell people that, trust factor is something which organizations can talk about. But, the trust factor has to be there. Unless there is a trustworthiness or to be trustworthy kind of drive in mind present in people, trust as a factor can't be a dominant factor in the organizations. And I guess companies have come up to the level of developing trust factor as a dominant factor, particularly when you are disconnected. People are operating from home, in the digital era, which I have given an emphasis in my latest book also. In the digital era, when you are not physically connected, when you don't get the warmth of or the smell of other person, the physical smell is present, and therefore what you're doing, you have to bank on your mental framework, and that should be a guiding principle. There should be a guiding principle. What is a guiding principle? I talked about the goodness. Now, if goodness is a guiding principle, how do I, open myself to the spirit of goodness? If I develop the spirit of goodness, then I see the good things in others. I understand the good prospects of others. People may have a good and bad combination of attributes. So I take the goodness of others. I encourage the goodness. So I would suggest the corporate HR or the corporate top management to develop and devise some mechanism, ways and means, so that you understand the goodness could be something different from my work profile, something different from the assigned work or assigned attributes required for the work. But again, some goodness is there present in a person, in a guy. So what you have to do is you put an emphasis on that. And I guess the companies have come up to this understanding throughout the world, particularly the Fortune 500 companies and Indian, top 500 companies and other companies who are in the digital era. The companies have come to the understanding that faith in people is important. Trustworthiness as a kind of attribute to be developed within individuals, and it's becoming more important. So on one hand, the understanding of the requirement of spirituality in, we talk about workplace spirituality. I believe unless the individual is spiritually oriented, there cannot be anything called workplace spirituality. That could be a workplace doctrines. That could be, doctrines of spirituality. But if you have to establish the spirituality, for example, I'll tell, like in our Rig Vedas, there is a guideline for this. Yatahu vai imani bhutani jayante yeno yatani jivanti yat prana pravishanti tad Brahman. Meaning, every individual who is there present on earth or were present before or would be coming in future are actually the embodiment or a representative of the supreme divine called Brahman. And that means all the qualities of goodness are present in every individual. So when I find that the person is a mix of that, I need to find out, I need to understand that yes, the person has got that goodness within. What I have to do is I have to trigger off the, elements which are good of the person, which are good for the society, which are good for the organization. And then I actually create a spiritual environment within the organization by bringing up the goodness or elements of goodness, factors of goodness within the organization. And I see that the world is gradually proceeding forward that. I'm very, very, emphatic on the young people being, goodness oriented. I find my students and students everywhere in the world. I have seen the students in almost all different campuses in the world, in the western part, in the eastern part, in the European context, in Indian context, in many places. And you see, this young people are always vibrant with more of goodness than the mature people. And with the simplicity in their mind, there is a attribute suggested by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. And he mentioned that this is the best attribute to become a spiritually oriented person. If you want to understand divinity, then that is the best attribute. He had mentioned about this, saying that Arjavam is a, simplicity. If the person is simply oriented, simple. Now, simplicity, what? I need to become good. I need to become trustworthy to others. I can't deviate from the goodness and fairness. I should not, because I am destined to perform good, perform better, and I am destined to do better for others also before I do something better for me. So this is the kind of attitude we should bring in the workplace spirituality more intense than anything else. I believe that we can cultivate this. I have a concept called, the workplace, sage. Workplace sage are those people who are actually cultivating the goodness within themselves and across the organization and for the society. So a manager has to become a workplace sage, a rishi in the organization, a seer in the organization, a sage in the organization who does not only bank on the current realities and sees the future, sees the element of prophetism has to be there within the framework, within the personality of the workplace sage. And that element of prophetism would actually drive it forward and would actually make it a better place within the organization and in the society. So I'm very hopeful and I'm very positive in this, and I got a lot of faith in the young people, and I find and I believe that these young people can actually revolutionize the society and the world by removing the evils from the society, by removing this corruption and other evils from the society, and then our society would be a better place to live in. We shall have a better organizations to work for. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Some really great insights. Thank you. Thanks. I checked with CMA because we started a bit late. We may overshoot 7:30 by some time. Hope that's okay. Nevertheless, we'll keep that in mind and try to close ASAP. If I may go to MVN, let me pose you a bit of a challenging question, which is, and you can respond to this in a general context, not with regard to a specific organization. So we have these situations of, the marketplace and competition. And then when we are talking in terms of, values, ethics, so to say, and the marketplace and the demands that we have, whether it is the CXO level down to the, downstream organization. What are your thoughts in terms of how do we reconcile, how do we really sort of live the values and ethics that we all espouse, especially when it comes into conflict with, marketplace demands?
Yeah, it's quite challenging, SKD. Workplace Rishi, workplace sage. I think that's something which is in my mind. It's still going on.
Yeah.
Marketplace, as we see it, finally, there are many people offering a similar kind of a service. I mean, whether it is in life insurance or whether it is in hydrocarbon or whether it is in any other place. Ultimately, we realize that a particular corporations are able to sustain, renew, and continue to remain relevant. And if you go deep into that, I think somewhere you always figure out that it is much more than actually what I call it as day-to-day capabilities which are demonstrated by the people. I think people, when the human spirit rises beyond the resource level and actually goes beyond, and whatever Dr. Banerjee was talking about, I think if you really look at it, when you look deep within, there are immense potential and capabilities which come out in the right kind of ecosystems. You always imagine, oh, this guy is not capable of doing, how did he manage it, kind of a story. So you realize that the human spirit, when it is unleashed beyond the resource level, and that is where I believe superior execution takes place in organizations, number one. And number two, as I see it, is that yeah, you can cut a corner here and there and make a money here and there for a while, but I think the stories of large corporations, what we have seen around, what you talked about earlier when you started off with an example, and the bigger ones, they have been around for long periods of time. They have seen through lots of ups and downs and lots of business cycles. And then it cannot be easily explained away by the so-called human resources, their own day-to-day capabilities or processes or something like that. It is much larger than that. And that is where the immense trust the customer places in a company, I think, is largely to do with what Jude was talking about. I think, why do we go back to a particular customer when there is a difficult situation? Or why do we go back to that particular company when this, because the trust factor which he's talking about, the trust, the spirit, the kind of unleashing of those kind of energies which are go beyond the day-to-day factors which we consider as the factors of production. I think they come to real life. And that is where actually if the organization can create a space for that individual spirituality to come to the fore, and if the managers become that kind of a ecosystem keepers, I think those organizations survive and actually thrive, in my view, with respect to that. I think that's the way I look at it. And at the core of all these things, as we see it, is that whether you call it spirituality is at the highest level, and remaining ethical, what you talked about, what not to do, and actually values are what we will do things in a fashion on a long-term sustained basis, not to cut corners here and there for a day profit or a day's two profit, but at the same time, I am here for a purpose and I deliver on that on a consistent basis. I think a lot of organizations are there as examples around us, and they're consistently delivering that to all of us. I think that's my view on it. But it takes a lot of effort, as we rightly put it. I think it's the top management has got a huge responsibility of laying the foundation for all these things, so that a large section of the young people or the mature people find it a place where they can become and they be and also deliver, both combined together, as I see it.
Very, very wonderfully expressed. Thank you. Thanks, MVN. Pallavi, another sort of, slightly challenging question to you, which is that, I mean, values, there is a set of core values typically, and I'm saying this more as a practice rather than, something which is there carved on stone. Sometimes values can be revisited, and there is a set of core values which we as individuals we have, or as organizations which we have, which are never compromised, and there could be an, like another set of values which can be revisited, and this thing, so to say, because there could be values and values. Now, you said something in terms of a culture fit while taking in people. And there are, as you would know, that there are two schools of thought. So one says that, okay, always ensure that, when you hire people, there should be a culture fit. And then you have another school of thought which says that it actually impedes, organizational growth, innovation, diversity, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
So even in the context of ethics, because you see, moral principles, if we take this discussion a little deeper, what constitutes morality, the way we see it, sort of may not be seen by someone else, so to say. So how do you sort of harmonize this apparent conflict in a workplace scenario?
Okay, that's quite a bouncer. Let me try to do justice to that. and this could be a very personal, observation and feedback also. Now, what we have been observing lately, and of course recent times, is that quite a few business leaders find it very alarming, and there's a lot of rise in accusations to the organizations of unethical practices and so on, right? We hear of increasing mess in the stock market manipulation. There's a disregard of environmental hazards. There's bribery and kickbacks and so on. Now, a lot of these things of do's and don'ts and what's right and wrong, these concepts are put in the code of conduct and your ethics and your trainings, etc. But at the end of the day, there's something which is way beyond this, is also the aspect of managing one's own self, your own personal values. I mean, how much of it can be trained and the awareness created and so on. And very rightly, you also mentioned that it's a two-edged sword, right? When you're looking at a select in terms of cultural fitment or a value system, the whole inclusion piece and diversity in opinions. Some people even say that what if the hiring manager has a very toxic mentality, or he or she is not ethical, you would kind of end up taking the like-minded people if you're looking at fitment accordingly. So that's a different parameter of discussion. But from a lot of aspects of reading on this topic, and a very nice article that I read very recently was, it talks about the purposes of the personal values or the organizational culture that we create, and they serve very strongly. Typically 3 aspects. One, that they behave as standards of behavior, right? For example, if as an employee, you see a petty theft done by a supervisor or a co-worker in the office, how do you expect to respond to that? To some extent, this behavior is influenced by societal values, your concepts of right and wrong. But in addition, individuals must determine this for themselves, of what is proper and what is not. And as my co-panelist said, there's a lot of gray zone here. It's not very black and white to say that this is the right thing to do and this is absolutely the wrong thing to do and so on. So that's one, that the service of the personal value system could be setting the standards of behavior. The second is they create guidelines for decision making, and also sometimes resolving conflicts within yourself and with others. Now, I strongly believe that managers who value personal integrity, they are less likely to make decisions that could be injurious to others. Okay, this is a personal belief, and I have experienced it also. Related to this, values can also influence how someone approaches a conflict. Again, for example, if your boss asks your opinion about a report that she wrote and you don't like the report, do you express your opinion candidly or be very polite and flatter? So there is this whole dicey scenario and a dilemma in terms of the employee. So again, your set of personal values and the culture and ethics help you in deciding, making the decisions. And the third aspect is the service of influencing employee motivation. Can't really explain it, but values affect employee motivation by determining what rewards or outcomes are sought. Just a simple example, quite a few organizations have that employees are often offered overtime work, right? An opportunity to make more money at the expense of their free time and time with their families. Now, as an employee, which would you choose? Would you work harder to get a promotion and take up possibly a more stressful job, or have a laid back and accept a slower and possibly less rewarding career path? I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, but nevertheless, some of the examples of workplace values and ethics we talk about are, basic stuff, as many of the people said, humility, respect for others, the basic fact that rules and regulations ought to be common and same for everyone. Company policies be communicated clearly to each and every one. Inclusion, sustainability, taking care of employees, and listening to external and internal customers, having a compliant culture of no discrimination, no conflict of interest, no harassment, no manipulation. The list is endless. And to achieve all of this, organizations have audits, compliance trainings, overall awareness. There's a support system for people having ethical dilemmas. You have a speak up avenue and so on. But a very important factor is also having leadership and managers who lead by example. If you have the right kind of leadership, it really brings in the value. Okay, Mr. Rao just mentioned a great point about how do you see companies sustain and improve and still go on, and what's the role of trust and the image of the brand in front of others. It just triggered my usual communication and discussion with my business head when he communicates that we are not, price leaders in the market. Our equipment is pretty expensive, but we are still one of the leaders in the market because of the precision, the accuracy, the customer service that we provide, the trust that the customers have in us, and so on. So there's a huge difference that the value system and the overall ethics and and spirituality brings to an organization.
Thank you, Pallavi. You handled that very well. As much as you said it was a bouncer. Thank
Hope
you.
so.
Thanks. Absolutely. Judhajit, couple of things. One is, when we talk in terms of values, ethics, and we've also discussed this, that at times this can sound a little fuzzy, etc., right? So how do we sort of demystify this in the context of an organization and really, because it just can't be the policy book or, the code of conduct, so to say. So in a very simple way where people can relate, how do we sort of percolate this down in an organization where people live this, practice this and live this is one. And an ancillary question to that is, you have, served organizations for long stints, and you are in your current organization, and hopefully you will, continue for long. For many years now, has that sort of helped you as a leader to influence outcomes better, even in the context of, let's say, even ethics and values or anything for that matter? So one is generally, how do you do that? And the other is the ancillary question. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Shautrata. I mean, it's an interesting question, but I hope to retire from ICICI, but I don't know.
Of course.
But that's still some time away. So yes, I mean, I think we made the point that ultimately we have to understand as senior leaders, everybody is watching us. And every day we are being watched. And so what are values? Values, and we talk about the the iceberg model, where 8/9 are under the sea and 1/9 is above the surface, right? So what is observable is behavior. And the basic premise that we make is that values drive behavior and behavior drives results. The how is important. If you were to say, and why is how important? Because at the end of the day, people expect consistency. From my HR perspective, I think my learning over the last so many years of my working life is the biggest. If you flip around, or rather, if you don't ask the question what motivates people, but what demotivates people. Definitely what demotivates people is perceived unfairness or perceived inequity. That something somebody got and somebody did not get, because there's no rules, it's discretion, right? So the moment you put in rules, moment you put in norms, moment you put in policies, moment you put in processes, what you are doing is limiting excess. That doesn't mean the organizations have to necessarily follow all norms, policies, because you cannot anticipate every situation where you have to go by the rule book, because then you become a bureaucratic organization. And organizations also need to adapt, be agile. And there are certain things which have to go beyond the rule book. Because at the end of the day, in the larger interest, or the larger interest of values, if you say, if sensitivity to customers is important, I mean, I'll give you a classic case as an example in terms of operationalizing. There was this lady who actually had a term policy with us, a customer. And this lady had lapsed her term policy and bought a new term policy because, prices also fall over a period of time. And she bought that new policy. Now, the problem is 6 months of buying the policy, she had cancer. Now, there is an exclusion period for a waiting period for a new policy. So technically, we would have been absolutely within our rules to dishonor the claim. And nobody, it would have been an open and shut case and from a legal perspective. But at the end of the day, what is the right thing to do? Right? Do you, if somebody has cancer, do you, and the person actually bought a policy and in 6 months had cancer, because if the person had continued with the policy, we would have paid the claim. Right? So it is these are vexing questions. And therefore, the question of if you have customer first as a value, if you say sensitivity is a value, then the answer is obvious. Right? It doesn't matter whether it hits the P&L, because what is the right thing to do in every situation, and that is where the anchoring of values and everything comes together in deciding the right thing to do, whether it's about a decision about a particular employee or a group of employees or a group of customers. And I think so. The larger point I want to make is, and going back to Professor Banerjee's opening session on self-management, a lot of it is about self-regulation and self-management, because at the end of the day, who controls the CEO? Who controls the CXO? You have to control yourself. I mean, you at this level, nobody is over. You don't have oversight, and it is also interesting since I think Professor Banerjee alluded to Mr. Gopalakrishnan. He's written a lot about what power does when people come to leadership roles. Sometimes you lose. You are sitting at an altitude where you, over a period of time, and Pallavi talked about, you get a lot of people who echo. You live in your own echo chamber. So what is reality and what is very difficult to decipher. So it's very important to feel connected, be grounded. And those are things that organizations, I think it's the job of leadership, because at the end of the day, you cannot blame anybody else but yourself. And these would be my thoughts. And going back to the first question in terms of how do you propagate it, I think you have to do it through stories. You do it through examples, through behaviors. There are various tools, rewards and recognition. G used a lot of that. So a part of the thing, and I am talking about G because the moment we used to say, are you GEized? And GEized meant that you live the values of GE for an HR profession. And so you have to, so at every orientation program, new hire orientation, we would talk about the values. And you have to exemplify the values. So HR becomes the custodian of values. And everything that you do, whether you hire people, fire people, promote people, reward people, recognize people, it's intertwined in all your HR processes. Because at the end of the day, you cannot have one process saying doing one thing, the other process. The alignment across all processes become very important. And then it becomes self-fulfilling, right? Now, I've also seen the excess of it when sometimes values have been used. So my only caution about values would be that it should not be used to punish. Because ultimately values, in my mind, you are punished for crossing the red line. But for values should be encouraging. That is my personal belief. And having seen many organizations and seen my organization, values are something you have to encourage in people to do the right thing. You obviously punish for doing the wrong thing, but you cannot be penalizing people for not doing the right thing enough. It's very difficult to quantify. And you have selective evidence, and their critical incidents are only few and far between to take big decisions only about people's careers and about people's lives based on one or two examples. So that is my view. And G did a marvelous example of propagating the values. But again, there is also a bit of, I would caution that it cannot also become cult-like. Up to a point, people should believe in it. They should resonate with it. But if it becomes a cult, it has its own set of, everything has a consequence. So I think we have to be very careful about what is the consequence we are expecting.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Jit. Thank you. Dr. Banerjee, a quick question, which is, if you could just highlight, what is the role that an educational institution can play in sort of creating and spreading the awareness of values, ethics, and spirituality more and more in the society at large, as also, like in the corporates, etc.
Well, actually, you find that, values and ethics was never a part of the curriculum, let's say, 30 years ago. In between, the last 30 years and 25 years, it was started. It all began in the eastern region of the country, and, gradually it has been adopted by the national institutions, universities, institutions, colleges, even schools at every level. And, this values and ethics is something which cannot be really taught. Is something which should come from within. What you can do, we can sensitize that as a teacher or in a teaching or in a learning context. This is what the companies are also doing in their learning centers or the training centers and development centers. And the institutions which are offering academics and, learning to the, young people, young stars, what they have done is now UGC and even it's global. Now, let's not mention about only Indian regulatories. It's now globally present. Everywhere now, ethics and values has become a part of the curriculum, be it a technology curriculum, a science curriculum, or a humanities, or a business professional of any kind. Everywhere now, an element of that is there. So you see, when I hear this as a young person, some impact of that would come in my mind, and at some point of time in my walk, in my career, this would actually have an impact in my personality, if not always, if not all. So that's why I think that as a curricular content, ethics and values is important, which is now present everywhere. And also we need to do something which is a practice. For example, demonstrative practice is needed. We do in our classroom also, the practice, but then that is not a compulsory practice. Those who are willing, they can take part in the practice. Those who are not, they can't, they should not. They are not, there is no compulsion. But then curriculum is a compulsion because you have to write the exam, you have to, you have to see the consequences of the things, you have to understand the nuances, you have to see different principles, the Indian principle, Western principles, the difference, Indian and Chinese principle, the Oriental principle, and so there are so many, you see the more different models. So from that perspective, I think it is important to be a component in the learning scenario. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I think we've had a very good discussion, and we could, of course, have gone on, but for the fact that, we have the constraint of time as well. So we'll keep it at this. I think all of us spoke from our heart and from our experience, and of course, also highlighted what's going on well, and what could be some of the areas where, there is more work which is required. So thank you once again. And Mr. Bhattacharya, the virtual floor is yours now. Thanks to you all too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dutt. It seems today is my bad day. Now my camera is declining to start. It's a really bad day for me. Before I hand over to Mr. Vibhor Tandon, who has already joined us, may I request Mr. Tandon to please switch on your camera, and I hope that it's working all right. So it's a very bad day for me. I'm sorry. I apologize to Dr. Banerjee for these kind of technical glitches that has happened, to Mr. Dutt for missing out on the pen profile and leaving your profile red in half. But thanks to all of you, it was a very, very involving session. It was very interesting to go through the session. May I now request Mr. Tandon? Mr. Tandon, are you there? Hello, Mr. Tandon?
Anirban, I'm there.
Yeah. So can you please switch on your camera so that I can at least...
My camera is on. I think everybody would be able to see me. My camera is on.
Okay. So we have amongst us Mr. Vibhor Tandon, who is a Assistant Treasurer of Calcutta Management Association, and also Associate
I think Anirban went offline for some reason, probably connectivity. So good evening, everybody. It is a pleasure to talk to you on this occasion. It is in fact a pleasure to be part of this great initiative by CMA and EIILM, where it was a webinar on self-management, probably one of the most important aspects of personal and professional life. Because we have seen people from across the walks of life. When I've taken classes on different subjects such as personal transformation, having seen people from different walks of life, be it professionals, corporate professionals, entrepreneurs, sports people, musicians, medical professionals, the only difference we find between one and the other person, between the capabilities that one has and the other, between how successful one is and the other one, is how they are able to manage themselves. And most of these are personal capabilities. Most of the difference is based on how well they manage themselves. And I believe that it was perhaps one of the most significant subjects to be covered by the speakers and the participants today. I am really glad, and I take this opportunity to extend my gratitude and thanks to the revered speakers. We have had the likes of Mr. Rao, who is the head of HR at LMT Hydrocarbon, Mr. Judhajit Das, who is from ICICI Prudential, Mrs. Pallavi Menon, who is director from ANZ Water Corporations, Dr. R.P. Banerjee, of course, from EIILM Kolkata, and the moderator, S.K. Dutt, who is currently the senior advisor at UNCTAD's program. So it was, in fact, a pleasure to have heard all of you, to have taken valuable inputs. For all the people from different walks of life here, be it professionals, be it entrepreneurs, be it students, be it professors, it is going to go a long way. This learning is going to go a long way. And these seeds of thought and ideas which have been implanted in all of us will be actually carrying us through our careers and ensure that our boat now, filled with these capabilities, will ensure that we are able to cross this river of our lives, which might be our corporate life, which might be our academic life, or for different professionals as well. So a very big thanks, and I extend my gratitude to all of you to have taken out the time and enlightened all of us on this very, very important subject, which is the core of success for everybody in every profession. So thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you so much, CMA Secretary, to have organized this program, and a very big thanks to all our participants who have taken out time from their busy schedule to attend this particular program and make it a huge success. We look forward to more deliberations on the subject and continued guidance and continued enlightenment on the subject from not only us, from our speakers, not only on such panels, but even offline. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best. Have a great evening. Take care and stay safe. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Tandon. As you could see, once again, I have lost contact with my computer. Now the computer has completely gone on a shutdown mode. So I'm very sorry, but thanks to all of the speakers. Thanks to Dr. Banerjee. Thanks to Team EIILM, especially Dr. Jayanta Shah, Dr. Shupriyo Pal. I'm thankful to Mr. Dutt for organizing this all together. And even after the final proposal for the vote of thanks, I'm taking this opportunity because I have been bothering all of you, including all the speakers all throughout these days. But I think it was a very interesting session. I have got very good feedbacks on YouTube also, and also on my personal WhatsApp number from my members. So thanks to all of you. Just for all the participants, I have already given on the chat box the e-certificate link. So you can click on the link and go and please take your e-certificate. It will come to your email ID to take. So thanks a lot. Dr. Banerjee, thanks a lot. So we'll take leave.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for staying for so long.
I extend thanks to all participants and all co-panelists, and my regards to co-panelists. And also I extend thanks to for the elder daughter of Mr. Rao. Because I referred her also in this discussion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
She was actually the person who set the contextualing. So thanks to her, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wish you all good time ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.